I have to admit, watching the newest Marvel series Moon Knight is a little bit like watching Jim Carrey out of context, as it can be jarring.
They have lived in the same state for thousands of years. They did not know about disease until the white man came.
Amusing, and can leave you with more questions than answers.
Look what came out of my egg sac.
Once finished, there is some rewatch value in order to understand the background better and have a clearer picture of details overlooked earlier. Despite that, a good amount of things are still unclear after the finale, so this series isn't without its flaws, and I'll get into what those are later on. But first, I give credit where credit is due, with the main actor, Oscar Isaac. I mean, it's almost hard to believe that this is the same person that had a role in the Disney Star Wars trilogy, which were all so bad that I'd rather stare into the unblinking eye of a Gamorrean's asshole than watch any of those movies again. In Moon Knight's case, Isaac carries his weight and then some. Literally, with his emotionally gripping performance as Marc Spector, a stern American mercenary vigilante who suffers from a split personality disorder with his alternate self who goes by the name Stephen Grant, a meek employee with a British accent working at a gift shop inside an Egyptian museum. The actor's talents are truly utilized here, with his ability to swap between personalities and their physical traits in an instant, which had me invested from beginning to end. In comparison, the only other noteworthy performers were the voice actors F. Murray Abraham for giving us a badass voice for Khonshu, as well as a newcomer actress named Antonia Salib, who was the voice for Tauret, with literally one of the sweetest voices I've ever heard. Now, when it comes to this show's storytelling abilities, it certainly has potential. As I said earlier, there is some rewatch value here, which is something not even all good shows have, and this isn't necessarily a bad series, but at the same time, it feels restricted by only having 6 episodes. Why only 6? This makes a lot of the Marvel TV series on Disney Plus feel rushed, and obviously there is more that needs to be said here instead of just leaving the audience wondering what the hell they just saw. There is just so much that isn't explained by the end. For example, why does Harrow put broken glass at the bottom of his Crocs? Is it for penance? If so, what did he do? Was it for serving Khonshu? Clearly, there is a rather deep backstory between Harrow and Khonshu because he seems to feel taken advantage of by the Moon God at one point, and not a whole lot is said about it. Also, isn't Harrow just a regular guy? How was he able to physically keep up with Marc as Moon Knight and take punches from someone who is superhuman? Never mind. Not that any of this matters now, considering the after-credits scene for the finale, which, if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you do that now, because it shows Harrow being killed by Marc's hidden alternate personality, something that has been hinted throughout the series and whose name turns out to be Jake Lockley, and is far more merciless than the other personas we've seen thus far. Anyway, in addition to things being unclear, what exactly was the point of showing Marc and Steven back at the asylum after defeating Harrow and Amit? I can understand the show wants to have its element of ambiguity, but the show has been telling a relatively straightforward story involving Marc and Steven that happens to have some mind-bending qualities to it. So steering off this path simply to have room for multiple interpretations only muddies the water here. The last bit of annoyance is a small scene that displays a need to let you know Disney is ticking off boxes on its diversity checklist. For instance, sometime after Layla turns into Scarlet Scarab and swoops in during a firefight to save a kid in danger, this happens. Surely there is a much cleverer way of letting this fact be known without it feeling forced, right? Jesus fucking Christ. Layla was in the process of pushing back an entire van with civilians inside of it, lives are on the line, and she feels the need to make sure there isn't any confusion on her cultural background. What's frustrating about this scene is how it's done so casually, as a throwaway remark, when it puts an emphasis on being more important about where you are from, rather than what it is you can do. That somehow identity is more important than character, a somewhat reoccurring idea in Phase 4 Marvel.
Hey, it's Black Falcon!
Just Falcon, kid.
No. My daddy told me it's Black Falcon.
Is it because I'm black and I'm the Falcon?
He ain't a falcon anymore, but he's still black.
It's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who save the world.
I'd rather not get distracted talking about other shows, though, so I'll drop the subject matter here. For now. All things considered, I feel like I've been talking a lot of shit, and Moon Knight definitely has a few things going for it too, such as its capacity for being a psychological thriller that dives into the mindset of people with mental psychosis and giving the audience a more empathetic perspective, as well as loosely tying in fiction with non-fiction, which at least says the people working behind the scenes did their homework. Then there's its interesting concept for a villain who, let's face it, some people would genuinely side with because Harrow and Amit in this story are the embodiment of the question, would you kill Hitler as a baby? Which is a surprising philosophical concept presented in a Marvel series. Now, even though Moon Knight just ended, I'm already eager for Season 2 and to see what they do next. Plus, not only would I like to see more, but it would be nice to see some actual connections to the MCU, so it doesn't feel separated, and eventually get to see the actual Moon Knight fight alongside Earth's mightiest heroes. Well, what's left of them anyway. That's all I've got for this review. To whom it may concern, thanks for listening.